Vox Box Star Wars Comic Book Podcast, Episode 31. Once you're wormy, you're always wormy.
What is thy bidding, my master?
There is great disturbance in the Force.
The Vox Box Star Wars Podcast, your source for Star Wars comics, news, and more. And now your host, Michael Corley.
Welcome back to Vox Box Star Wars Comic Book Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Corley. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are covering Star Wars number 31. It is titled Return to Tatooine. We open with a Star Destroyer meeting a Tog ship. By the way, I sometimes call it Tag, and I sometimes call it Tog. I'm sorry, guys. It's just a weird name. It's spelled weird. I'm going to say it weird. I'm just going for it. Right now, I'm calling it Tog. And we see two brothers, Baron Tog, the commercial shipping fellow with cybernetic eyes, talking to his brother, who is a high-ranking official in the Imperial Army. And you know what? Even though we've just started, that means it's time for...
Dramatic reenactment.
Because of one young rebel who did the impossible, Luke Skywalker, particularly not if the Empire depends solely on your Starfleet's blockade, little brother, led no doubt by Darth Vader. Why should your career, and our family's prestige, take hind position in the Emperor's favor to that blasted wizard? A success now could eclipse the Sith Lord. I'm moving in secret, Ulrich, using the House of Tag's great scientific and commercial resources. With you to assure continued military cooperation, we'll have revenge and more.
The great reading of Baron Tog was done by Matthew Fox from This Week in Star Wars. This Week is the community's only weekly podcast dedicated to bringing you headlines from all aspects of the Star Wars universe, without all the commentary. You can find Matthew at thisweekinstarwars.com. Thanks, Matthew. That was a great reading of the Baron. The Baron is saying that they will have their plans come to fruition on a backwater world called Tatooine. And we cut to Tatooine. There is Luke Skywalker. He is looking with his scope, and he turns back to R2-D2 and C-3PO, and he says, "Move with that covering fast." We see C-3PO and R2-D2 trying to get the ship covered with sand-colored tarps that will make it nearly invisible from a distance. Out on the dune, we see stormtroopers. They are carrying a scanner, and they are riding on a giant lizard you may be familiar with. They do detect the speeder that Luke Skywalker has brought, but not his interplanetary ship, since it has been put under the special tarp. Luke explains that it is electronically charged fabric that will keep the scanner from picking it up. They don't think anything of the speeder. They say that this is probably just a farmer out hunting for womp rats. I do enjoy, as the stormtroopers are going off, one of them is saying, "Hey, tomorrow I get to ride the dewback." As Luke is heading through the desert, he suddenly stops and runs out. C-3PO doesn't realize what's going on, but then he realizes Luke has come back to his moisture farm, the partially ruined structure that was once his home. He's thinking of how he misses Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen very much. And that's when he notices the Vaporator is active. That shouldn't be. That's when he realizes that someone is leveling a blaster at his back and is asking him to drop his weapon. Luke takes this opportunity to throw the blaster to the side. That distracts the man for a moment, allowing Luke Skywalker to activate his lightsaber. He says, "Han Solo taught me about distracting a foe, and the lightsaber work I learned from Obi-Wan Kenobi." As he levels the lightsaber, the man takes off his helmet and goggles, and this is a man known as Fixer. He's someone that Luke knows from his teenage years, someone who works at Tashi Station, repairing equipment. He reveals that the moisture farm has a new owner, and that is none other than the House of Tog. They have bought up a bunch of local moisture farms. But more explanations can wait as he takes Luke over to see a woman a woman who was around Luke's age and is now grown up. She calls him Wormy. If you've ever seen the deleted scenes from Luke hanging out with his teenage friends, in my opinion, while interesting, a well-deleted scene, they refer to him as Wormy, and he references that he hasn't heard that nickname in a long, long time, since he came to the Tashi station to tell everyone about the big space battle. That was the battle that led to him meeting C-3PO and R2-D2. Fixer and this girl have become married, and they've settled down at the old Darklighter place. Of course, Biggs Darklighter has also left, and unfortunately will never be coming back. Luke is saying that he's not too happy about the Tog family development, particularly with their connections to the Empire. This conversation is interrupted by C-3PO coming to tell everyone that a stormtrooper carrier is coming this way. Luke Skywalker hops onto his speeder and heads off with C-3PO and R2-D2, when suddenly, when they're going down a canyon, they see a bantha. It is just standing there. It is not moving. He is only barely able to turn the speeder in time and stop it just inches before it hits the side of the canyon wall. Luke is saying that the bantha is acting like a statue, and in fact, he touches it, and it's cold. It's literally frozen stiff while sitting underneath the twin suns of Tatooine. That should be impossible. What could possibly freeze a creature so thoroughly that it wouldn't even thaw under the desert suns? R2-D2 is warning them that the transport is almost here. C-3PO is telling them that they have to run or hide. We see the transport coming over, and the stormtrooper says something interesting. He says, "At last, Commander, stupid creature must have wandered in the canyon before the effect took." And they say that means they know what needs to be done. They blast the bantha, reducing it to bits. We see later that Luke Skywalker and his droids had hidden around the edge of the canyon, and C-3PO is asking, why destroy something that's already dead? And Luke is saying, perhaps so no one can find out why it dies. And he's saying that whatever is the reason for the Empire in this area, it is certainly not for moisture farming. We see out at the Jundland Wastes an Imperial outpost, and inside is Baron Tog, who we find out his first name is Orman. I don't know if we've actually heard that before. He is talking to his brother. This is actually not the same brother who was in the Imperial. This man is a scientist. He's a bit of a wormy fellow, as you might say. And he's asking him why he has this ridiculous outmoded weapon, a lightsaber. And Baron Tog, or Orman, as I want to call him from now on, is saying that he's saving it and been training with it so that one day he can pay back Darth Vader for what he did to his eyes. As you may remember, Darth Vader had cut out Baron Tog's eyes with his lightsaber, forcing him to use cybernetic ones so that he can see. Baron is saying that this is the perfect place to conduct their experiments. It is isolated, and also he has found that Luke Skywalker is from this planet, and he hopes to find him and pay him back for interfering in his plans. The Baron is more than happy to get vengeance on Darth Vader or Luke, and preferably both. We see Luke Skywalker approaching Mos Eisley at night. One of the things he's asking C-3PO to do in this mission is to call him Luke instead of Sir or Master, that they've been through too much together to call him anything else. It's very hard for C-3PO, but he finally manages to say, Sir, Luke. He leaves them with the speeder, since as we've seen in the past, the droids are not allowed in the cantina. Unsurprisingly, there is a fight going on. As soon as he walks inside, someone is thrown into Luke. It is revealed to be none other than Han Solo. He's saying, "Hey, kid, haven't you learned to stay out of low-class dives like this? You don't know who you could bump into." As we look up, we see Chewbacca banging two aliens' heads together to settle down the fight. Han is explaining about their adventures and where they unintentionally rescued Jabba the Hutt and got him to take the bounty off of them, and that also they needed a place to spend the extra that they got for letting Jabba live. That's when Fixer comes in. He says that he's been looking for Luke and he needs to tell him something. He's actually admitting that he's betrayed Luke, that in his new job, he had no choice but to report a rebel. And that's when we see stormtroopers coming into the bar saying, "You three, halt!" And it is on a battleground, opens up in the cantina. All of them are firing their blasters, making their way outside. The stormtroopers are following. C-3PO has started up the speeder. They barely make it out of Mos Eisley with blasts going either side. But one of the stormtroopers is looking at the ground and he sees that the speeder had been hit. It is leaking coolant. And he's saying, no matter, it'll burn out by morning. If one of the desert patrols doesn't get them, the twin suns will. And that ends Star Wars number 31. A fun return to Tatooine, and we're also going to move towards revealing what is the secret that the Empire and the House of Tog are working on. You have a wonderful day, and may the Force be with you.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
So be it, Jedi.
Thank you for listening to the Vox Box Star Wars podcast. Give us a review on iTunes to help more Star Wars fans find the show. Have a great day, and may the Force be with you.